Good. Well, thank you to everyone who is joining us for this week's episode of United Way Unwrapped. We are excited to feature Habitat for Humanity of Orange County, located here in North Carolina, for this week's episode. Just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. I would ask as you enter in onto the call, please make sure to mute your mic. As well, if you have any questions that you may arise during today's call, please feel free to drop those in the chat. We will have an opportunity at the end of the episode for our audience to chat with Kaitlyn, ask her awesome questions about habitat or anything that you might deem pertinent or wanted to share. But I did want to go ahead and share those housekeeping rules before we get started. We know that Zoom sometimes can be a little bit tricky, but we'll just extend some grace. So thank you to everyone who is with us on today. My name is Allyson Cobb. I lead our community engagement work here at United Way of the Greater Triangle. We are located in Durham, North Carolina, and our mission is to eradicate poverty and increase social mobility through the power of partnerships. And what that looks like for us currently is being able to create platforms for our awesome funded partners to really talk more in depthly about the work that they do here in the Triangle and its importance. Today, we are excited to have Kaitlyn with us. Kaitlyn is the Communities and Events Manager with Habitat for Humanity of Orange County. And so we previously had their lovely CEO, Jennifer, who joined us for a panel a few weeks ago. And we are excited to be able to extend this conversation with Kaitlyn to really dive deep into the work of Habitat for Humanity, not only nationally, but also here in Orange County. So, Kaitlyn, thank you for being with us today.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yes. So, Kaitlyn, why don't you share with us a little bit more about your organization, its mission, and the work that you all do?
Yeah, so as you had mentioned, I'm with Habitat for Humanity of Orange County here in North Carolina, and our mission statement is seeking to put God's love into action. Habitat for Humanity of Orange County brings people together to build homes, communities, and hope. And for us, that looks like two different major programs. So, what a lot of people know us for is our new home construction, which allows people to build their homes alongside with volunteers and donors and just other members of the community. People who move into a habitat home are typically coming from an overcrowded, subsidized, or cost burdened housing situation, and they make 30 to 80% of the area median income to kind of qualify for our affordable housing. The other program that people don't know as well with Habitat is our home repair program. So we repair existing homes within the county. We saw a need that people were needing work done on their homes but didn't want to move. And so we filled that gap by making sure that people, the three criteria we typically look for are if the home is warm, safe, or dry. So that looks like roof repairs. We build accessibility ramps a lot. We'll make accommodations in homes like zero-step showers for seniors who are aging or even in kitchens sometimes, plumbing, electrical, all sorts of different things, but not people who necessarily need to move into affordable housing, just people who can't afford there aren't affordable home repairs, so we kind of fill that need. And then our organization also works on an international level. So a lot of people know Habitat for Humanity International. Here locally, we tied with a couple of different international areas. So we tied with Honduras and Myanmar, but many affiliates tied with different areas of the world, and we actually send volunteers sometimes out there to help volunteer and build homes. For our affiliate, we've been around for 36 years now, and this year actually we are building our 300th home. That picture on the screen there is from our first volunteer day actually at the 300th home we're currently building in the historic North Side neighborhood in Chapel Hill. And we're also coming up on repairing our 200th home in our 36 years. That program's been around a lot, less time actually, so we're pretty proud of that milestone.
Thank you, Kaitlyn, for that great overview of not only Habitat for Humanity International, but also here in Orange County. I have received some notices in the chat. If you could turn your volume up some, Kaitlyn, that would be great. The audience out there really wants to make sure they hear that message that you're sharing.
Yeah, I can get it up a little bit. Can you still hear me, or it's just a little quiet?
Yes, I can hear you. It's just a little bit quiet.
Let's see if that's a little bit better.
I think that is better.
Speak a little louder. Sorry about
Yes.
that.
No, thank you, Kate. It's quite all right. We're all learning this Zoom thing together. And so hopefully that is better for our external audiences. And again, I want to thank you for your grace with that. And thank you for sharing that awesome overview, Kaitlyn. So, in thinking about the work that you all do with Habitat for Humanity in Orange County, what's something that average residents don't know about Habitat for Humanity? And what don't they know about affordable housing? And what's unique about your organization's approach to solving it?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, Habitat for Humanity is an international organization, and I think a lot of people don't realize that we service our communities locally. So we are the Orange County affiliate. We only service people within this county. I know a lot of people on this call are obviously this is the Triangle area United Way. So Durham County has its own affiliate, Wake County has its own affiliate. Um, Places more out west that there are less people, they kind of service a more broad area instead of just by county. But we really look at the need in our specific area and the population that we need to serve in our area. The two biggest misconceptions I think of Habitat in general are that Jimmy Carter founded our organization, which, while he's been incredibly involved and kind of propelled us to the public image that we're at today, was actually not involved in founding our organization at all. He didn't come into play until a couple years afterwards. And then another big misconception is that Habitat gives our homes away, and that is 100% not true. Our homeowners work very hard to get the homes that they have. They do pay an affordable mortgage, so depending on their income at the time, like I said previously, they pay 30 to 80%. So neighbors may pay different amounts, but they do pay an affordable mortgage. And in order to even get the keys to their home, they put in 275 hours of sweat equity. Right now, that number is a little lower due to COVID because it's just harder to get out in the community and get on our construction site. But they invest the time by coming on site and building their home or their neighbors' homes. They go to our restores and volunteer there. They take classes either within our organization or within the community. A couple of our residents have been doing the police academy in town. We internally also offer different budgeting and financial literacy workshops. We offer home maintenance workshops. We even offer just like, especially during the pandemic, our really popular ones have been healthy cooking and mindfulness and just kind of being well during these times where people aren't as well as they normally are. So it takes a lot of work to become a Habitat homeowner. The process from the day you apply to the day you close is anywhere from a year to a year and a half. And
Wow.
they are putting in the work the entire
Mhm.
time. It's not just, okay, we chose our home and we'll see you in a year when it's built and we can move in. They're putting in the time and energy, and donations from individuals and people like you are helping to subsidize the mortgage and make it affordable, but they are still putting in the work and paying the mortgage. I think something that a lot of people don't know about affordable housing, and unfortunately, the pandemic has really kind of shed a light on this, is that housing affects so many areas of your life. If you don't have a safe, stable home,
Mhm.
other pieces start kind of falling apart, probably isn't the right phrasing, but if your child doesn't have their own room to study quietly for school, and especially in these days where people are doing school from home and that's school for them, it's not just homework, and they get distracted, they don't do as well in school, and it might be harder for them to progress on to higher education. So if they grow up in a safe and affordable home with a room where it's not overcrowded, they do better in that aspect. People who live closer to their jobs, that's hard these days with affordable housing, especially here in Chapel Hill, where it's so expensive to live
Yep.
within town. But obviously, most of the jobs around here are based around the university and the hospital. So your just ability to be involved within your community and your neighborhood is, and your connection to your town is really hard if you can't
Yep.
live there, and especially if you're not maybe on a bus line and you have to carpool and your transportation to work isn't reliable.
Mhm.
And again, with COVID, a lot of that's a lot harder these days. So it unfortunately has exposed those cracks in the system, but it's almost kind of a good thing to expose those cracks and really see, while yes, affordable housing may not solve the immediate problem, it's going to solve so many other things down the road. In Orange County alone, 1 in 3 households are cost burden, and cost burden is considered paying 30% or more of your income on housing. And that's not just rent, that's your utilities, that's your
Mhm.
property taxes, your HOA if you have one. And that's, I mean, for people who are in the lower income, there isn't affordable housing for them here in Chapel Hill.
Absolutely.
In Orange County, to afford a two-bedroom apartment, you have to work 112 hours a week if you're
Wow.
making minimum
Could you
wage.
repeat that, Caitlin? How many hours a week?
112.
I
So
just
that,
want to make sure our audience is hearing that, right? Because most of us in our career, we work 40-hour weeks, maybe some overtime, but 112 hours a week.
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I think it's 16.30 an hour you have to make if you're working 40 hours a week to
Mhm.
afford a two-bedroom apartment. So, and I mean, if you're a single mom with kids, you need a two-bedroom apartment, but
Right.
you only have that one income. So it's hard for those people who, again, are the core of our community, the housekeepers at the hospital, the servers at your favorite restaurant downtown. They aren't making more than $10 an hour in most
Mhm.
cases, so it's been
No,
hard.
and I think you said some things that were here that were so poignant and important for people to hear. One, that Jimmy Carter did not found Habitat for Humanity. I found that to be, the biggest misconception that people think about, right? But it's because he spent so much time invested in the organization. But then also, the fact that folks who become homeowners through you all's model actually put in that sweat equity, I think that's key, right? And not only being able to provide access to affordable housing, but also empowering people through that process, right? They get to walk away feeling as though they have put in, and contributed to this process and being able to build a new life essentially as a homeowner for themselves and their children and future generations. So I think that's one of the things that really stands out to me about Habitat for Humanity, that it really is a model that comes full circle for folks. Not only are you getting that access, but you're also being able to feel empowered through the process, as well as highlighting many of those systems level issues as it relates to affordable housing in many of the communities that we not only see here in the Triangle, but across the United States, right? Affordable housing is a conversation that is being had, and it really is something that is beyond just providing the access. It's creating those systems level changes. So I just appreciate you really breaking that down for our audience and really providing that insight for them to better understand you all's model, why it's important, but then also how we all have to kind of play advocate to making those systemic changes, right? I think that's great.
I can't tell you how many times I hear volunteers say, "Well, if Jimmy Carter at 94 years old can still be out on site swinging a hammer, I can too." So
Exactly.
he's
No, I
definitely
think
break the stigma of what you can and can't do on site.
I love that, right? What you can and cannot do. I myself am an avid restore shopper. So I feel like that is my way to contribute to the work that you all do, right? You have tons of models and ways in which people can be involved. And so that's one great way to do so. We're now going to share an awesome client video that Kaitlyn was able to share with us to really dive deep into how much Habitat for Humanity really changes the lives of folks that it interacts with. So I would encourage you to tune in and pay attention.
What made me interested in living in this community is that it was a place that I could afford, and I thought that option was completely gone out of my life, and I didn't know if it was gone out of my life for the rest of my life. So when I saw the flyer at my job, I was thrilled, and I was like, this might be a place for me where I could actually have a place and not have to move again in my whole life. It's been good in that it's not an extra worry anymore about all of the things that I had to worry about before, about paying my bills, working lots of overtime. So that's been a real positive thing for me. I want to remind everybody that it was 20 degrees with a wind chill factor of about 9. And I openly admitted to every single person that was here, if I had been on the list to come and help you, I have to admit that I would not have come. I wouldn't have. Every one of them showed up. This was a slab of concrete, and we had 2 sets of people. I was allowed to pull 50 hours of volunteer time for my volunteer hours from that. We had about close to 250 volunteer hours before the day was out. Anyway, John, I hadn't met with him in a while. So John goes, let me go show you around. So he walked me around, sort of updated me. And in the meantime, they had taken the workers, the Habitat people had brought all the workers over here, the volunteers, to show them what to do. So I thought to myself, I know these people. I know they're very capable people, but they're not carpenters, they're not, plumbers. Like, how are they going to know what to do? So John and I meandered around the property for about 15 minutes, and by the time I got back, every single person was fully engaged. One of my coworkers was at a huge saw, and I was like, what? Like, how do you even know he knows how to use that thing? So anyway, they were all busy. By the time lunch came, they had already raised the wall between John and Marion and my place. And we have pictures to document all of that. It was absolutely wonderful. The marketing, Tom from marketing at UNC, actually, while people went to start to have lunch, he walked me through, and I showed him every single place. This is going to be my drawing area, this is going to be my library, and he couldn't believe that I already had this all on a floor plan and everything. But my co-workers worked their bottoms off. I mean, they didn't stop for a minute, they didn't take breaks. They brought their husbands, they brought their sisters. They have the dedication. I had them in a bag, and I didn't want anyone to see them. So as they were talking, I was hurrying up because I knew they were going to ask me to come up and speak. So I was hurrying up, and I changed into them. So at the end, I was like, did a little Dorothy thing and clicked the heels together and said, I'm no longer in Kansas, but I'm at Crescent Magnolia, and clicked the heels. And the nurse manager, Cheryl, from Children's 6, who was, I considered her my boss. She wasn't, but when I was on the floor, I considered her my boss. We conferred about many things. I went to her for advice all the time. She never quashed anything I said. She always knew when I came to her it would be thoughtful and have a plan in place. She showed up, and then each subsequent person started showing up, like regional managers. That's one of my favorite photographs, actually, of them with me, and everybody looked so happy. I looked the happiest there in that photo. I was thrilled, and I got to take them inside and show them and explain to them. And when we got inside, all they kept saying was, what can we do for you? I'm like, you've done it. You've done it already. You showed up. You supported me during this time. You put up with my craziness and my working overtime and being tired, and you gave me the hours I needed. You've done it. And they were like, no. Like, what do you need? Do you need closets? Do you need, make a list of paper goods and supplies? Like, no, we're gonna do a whole bunch for you. And I'm like, oh, and Habitat. Oh, God bless all of them. I mean it. Now I'm gonna cry. I love you guys so much. John and I sit out here. We talk almost every day. We touch base for at least 20 minutes every day, whether it's out back, walking around, or sitting here. We never turn around and go back in our places without looking at each other and going, we are, right, John? We're blessed. We're so blessed. And we say that every single day. We love it here so much that we don't have to worry. I'm not working, that I can do things I love. I can start painting. I can do more photography. I can take care of my animals. I can take care of my friends, and my family. Like, there's time to do those things now. So, yeah, the day that I walked to the time clock and that flyer for Habitat for Humanity, and I asked dozens of people, did you put that there? Did you put that there? Nobody put claim on it. They don't know how it got there. I ripped that thing down so fast and went and photocopied it and put it back up. I was on the phone that day. The next day I dropped the stuff off to Vince. I had everything. And he sat right down with me. We spent an hour and a half talking and going through the paperwork, and the rest is history. Here I am by the old oak tree. You know? So, yeah, I feel like I can breathe.
What an awesome story. Thank you for sharing that with us, Kaitlyn. And, I think Anna Marie, or excuse me, Claire is a great example of many of the Habitat sort of recipients and owners who go through your program and the joy that they feel having, put in that work and then being able to sit out on their porch as she shared and really reflect and say, that this happened and it happened with the support of Habitat for Humanity. Can you speak to just sort of the experience and what that feels like each time is that happens for a new client to have them experience that home ownership feeling and what that's like?
Yeah, and what's funny with her is so she started within our program a couple months after I started with Habitat. And one of the first events I was at, I have a photo of her actually, and I should have shared it with you now that I'm thinking about it. At her plot of land, she's like, "This is where I'm gonna live. This is gonna be my home." And so it's so fun to see her there now and kind of see the pride because you could see the pride in her face in that original photo when it was just dirt. But yeah, the experience of being a homeowner. I mean, I love this story because it's the community that she's built there. Anna Marie lives in Crescent Magnolia in Hillsboro, which is the community we're wrapping up right now, and it's a senior focused housing community. And so, just her experience becoming a homeowner for her, it was really kind of joining this community of both habitat, but being with these other people who are like her in this similar phase of life. Where she was before, she was priced out of. It wasn't a good situation for her, and so now she really kind of, as she mentioned, feels at home. And that's, I think, what our mission is at the end of the day, right? Is to kind of bring people to a home that they feel safe and comfortable in.
Absolutely. Everybody deserves that feeling, right? And I think that's one of the more wonderful things about Habitat for Humanity is that it really is putting the humanity back into home ownership, right? So thank you for sharing that story with us. I would love for you to kind of shift gears and talk about how COVID-19 and the pandemic that we all are experiencing globally has really impacted the work for Habitat for Humanity. We know you guys are infamously known for your volunteer opportunities. People are spending weekends working on you all's sites, building homes, creating community. How has the pandemic really shifted you guys' focus as an organization, but also impacted it as well?
Yeah, so as you say, one of the things that people always think is funny about our organization is that we trust, kind of as Anna Marie mentioned, average people to build homes. Our homes do a pass inspection; they are built to code. So people who come to site, we teach them what they're doing. You don't. People always say, "I don't know anything about construction," and that's okay. We teach you what you need to know. Thankfully, our organization has never truly shut down during the pandemic. Obviously, our organization, I think, does a lot of great things with people and building that community. But at the very end of the day, we build homes and we sell homes. And during the pandemic, both construction and legal services had considered essential during this whole time. So we never had to shut down either our construction work on site, but also in closing homes. We have a staff of 7 construction members, and so they have been able to still work since mid March when all of this started. Obviously, as you alluded to, we had to stop volunteers on site for a while. We put that on hold in March, and around early July, we started inviting select groups out. As I mentioned before, sweat equity is something that our homeowners earn as part of becoming a homeowner, and our hours are normally 275. We lowered it to 100 during the pandemic just because it's obviously harder to get out and about. Um, So they were one of the first groups of people that we wanted to make sure could come back on site. A, because they want and need to earn the hours, but two, it's their homes they're living in at the end of the day. They want to be out there and they want to be helping to raise the walls and putting the siding up and roofing. So we made it a priority to kind of make sure that those who needed to be on site could come back in the safest way possible. We've also had some select groups start coming out. Unfortunately, we're not letting the masses of just general individuals come out. Pre-COVID times, on a Saturday, we could have up to 50 people out on our site. Right now, we're doing up to 6 people per house we're working on. So we're working on 3 houses in one neighborhood. I'm sorry, 4 in one neighborhood, so we can have up to 20 people, including staff, out there. So we're able to kind of keep our mission going a little faster than it was just our staff, but we're grateful to still have been able to keep moving. From mid-March to June 30th, which is the end of our fiscal year, we were actually able to wrap up and close on 9 homes, which is a lot for our organization. We normally kind of pick it up during that time of year anyway, just when our natural construction schedule runs, and we didn't really need to put anyone on hold.
Mm-hmm.
For us, it was really important too, because we know these people and we know what situations they're in, and we want them to move into their new homes. A lot of them are paying month to month, they're not in good situations, so we worked really hard to try and keep up our construction timeline as best as we could to get them into the homes they wanted. So we've closed on 9 in that little time frame, and since mid-March, so now being early November, we've closed on 15 total, which is on pace for what we normally close, if not a little bit more, which has been really exciting. We actually have 2 closings in the next 2 weeks coming up, so that number will get to go up a little bit, which is
Exciting.
very exciting. Yes.
No, and that's great to hear that, even through a pandemic, right? That home ownership, affordable housing, shelter is still crucial. And it's not something that can kind of fall to the wayside. In understanding that as an organization and being able to pivot and even experience, on time or growth, right, is awesome. And so I'm excited to hear that. I think it's wonderful for the people in the communities of Orange County. And could you talk a little bit about, because I oftentimes, think that people are familiar with the fact that Habitat builds homes, but you mentioned in the beginning of this call about the the repair service that you all also provide throughout Orange County to either homes that have either, experienced any sort of destruction or just need basic repairs. Has that work been impacted at all as well? Have you seen an increase in the need around that?
It has, yeah. So we complete roughly 30 projects a year for that program. This past fiscal year, we ended up completing 32, despite the pandemic going on, with about a third of those actually being completed during that mid-March to end of June pandemic timeframe. We, like I mentioned before, a lot of work we do would be exterior, but also interior work. We had to kind of pivot and pause on any of the projects we were working on indoors just because it was too risky. Most of the people that we service through that program are older adults, seniors, so they're, of course, unfortunately, the more vulnerable. But we were able to complete a lot of roof repairs and we built a lot of ramps. One of the ramps we actually had built recently was for an individual who had been hospitalized and couldn't come home until they had a ramp due to the reasons they were hospitalized for. So there are different projects and needs that have kind of come up that, not to say the interior ones aren't important by any means, but we've also been able to kind of get some other projects done a little quicker because those don't take as long as maybe a full bathroom, taking out a shower and installing one type situation. So that's kind of why we've seen an uptick there actually too, because we've been able to just service a different need. Now going into the winter and looking at trends, we're kind of analyzing how that program looks going forward, just because there is unfortunately still a lot of need for that indoor work. So kind of analyzing our policies and seeing how we want to go forward with that. But we've been keeping busy there too, which is it's sad when we're busy in a way, because of course again there's a need, but we're happy to be busy and happy to serve the people.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to also highlight that work specifically because I think it goes unnoticed sometimes because people are so familiar with your builds. But I think that, programs like that and others nationally that Habitat's able to provide are also kind of in need of support, right? And we understand that the need exists, and being able to provide an opportunity to meet that need is always welcomed and warranted. So I think that it's great for our audience to really hear about the other ways that they can be involved in the work that you all do throughout the year, and how important it is to really have support in those endeavors. And so, thinking about kind of the future, right, of Habitat for Humanity of Orange County, but also Habitat for Humanity International. How do you envision your organization strengthening its role here in the Triangle? You kind of alluded to affordable housing and the affordable housing crisis that we are all bearing witness to, not only here in the Triangle, but also nationally. What is the role of Habitat for Humanity in that? And then also, how can United Way donors support that work year round?
Yeah, so I think for us, and again, it's kind of funny because we are Orange County, so we only service a small but very important pocket. Those of
Absolutely.
you who don't live in our county, I do encourage you to check out. I assume most of you are Lake and Durham, but your local affiliate too, because they're all doing amazing work and relatively similar work. I think the role that our organization, at least locally, plays is that we really kind of look at the need of our specific area and adapt and pivot our work. Like I said previously, our affiliate's been around for 36 years, but our home preservation program has only been around for about 10. So that was a need that we saw after we had been around for a while and said, hey, this is something that we can really kind of fill in here. And like I said previously, we're creeping up on our 200th repair. So unfortunately, a strong need there that we've been able to fill. Like I had mentioned as well, our senior housing community that we're currently wrapping up, that was something that our previous executive director had realized that the wait times in Orange County for retirement communities are very long, and once you get in, they're incredibly expensive. There are very few affordable options for seniors, and so we saw that need and thought, well, hey, we can build senior affordable house. Like, why not? We haven't done it before, but there's nothing stopping us. And what's cool about that is our affiliate is the first in the nation to do something like that, and now many other affiliates are kind of following our lead and asking us questions of what did you learn and how can we do this as well, because they're noticing that need in their local communities as well. So with that project, we've been kind of innovative in leading the way for others. Our upcoming community that we're kind of working on laying the groundwork for now, Weaver's Grove, is a mixed income housing community we'll be building in Chapel Hill. And again, something that there isn't a lot of affordable housing in Chapel Hill. There's not a lot of remaining land available to even have
Right.
the opportunity to build in Chapel Hill. Weaver's Grove, when complete, will have 236 homes,
Wow.
100 of them habitat homes. So
Wow.
it's going to be very mixed. It'll be a great environment for kids to grow up in and kind of be around different people, but also live in the communities that they work in. So for us locally, we kind of see the need and try and pivot our work to fulfill it. I think on a kind of international or national scale, one of the big things that we locally support and are part of is advocacy work.
Mhm.
As you kind of mentioned before, and I know is on the back of everyone's minds, what's going on this week, that we can build houses, but we're not going to build our way out of this problem. At the end
Mhm.
of the day, there needs to be policy changes on the local, the state, and the federal levels, and so we advocate locally here, but also our organization advocates. We have a cost of home campaign running right now. We're in the second year of it, and it's working on policy changes. Even recently, when stimulus, the second round of stimulus packages were on the table for discussion, we advocated towards, hey, there's not a lot of rental assistance, if
Mhm.
any, in these. So, what can you do to help these people that are being evicted? I mean, don't even know the number off the top of my head because it's so
Right.
millions of people were evicted because of losing their job or getting sick and being unable to afford rent anymore. So
Yeah.
something that we partner with, but also do on a national scale, is just trying to make that change at the institutional level.
Absolutely. And thank you for providing that overview, Kaitlyn. I think it's so crucial for our audience to understand at different levels how their support and their engagement is needed. So, whether it's through a can do attitude of volunteership, if it's through donations to support your local Habitat for Humanity, or through your own advocacy work to really highlight the specific issues that are affecting affordable housing and gentrification in many communities, really becoming an advocate for that. There's always a lane for people to be engaged in this work, and using the tools that are being shared through organizations like United Way and Habitat for Humanity is always key. So I thank you so much for providing that insight, because I think it will really touch people in our audience to really identify how they can truly give back and the ways that they can be involved in their local Habitat for Humanity communities as well as those communities abroad. I did want to open up some time to take some questions from folks in the chat. We did have a question earlier from Jason. He asked, do you have regular follow up with homeowners? And if so, is it to check on how they're doing, if they're maintaining a certain level of stability, security, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So we do. We once a homeowner moves in for that first year, they have a lot of different warranties on their homes, and so actually after a year, we'll check in with them in terms of the condition of their home and make sure everything is going well. No, they are homeowners and they have to make those repairs if they're needed, but at the same time, we want to support them in that process and kind of make sure that they're doing okay. A lot of our neighborhoods also have HOAs, and they have their own little community committees, I guess might be the right word too. So we're engaged with them in that way. We have a homeowner services, or I'm sorry, homeowner advocacy committee, and so those who are really want to be engaged will also come to us in that way. But we have a homeowner newsletter, so we check in with our homeowners weekly and saying, hey, here's what's going on in the community. Reach out, let us know if there's anything going on with you. And especially at the beginning of the pandemic, we made an effort to reach out, or I would say a couple weeks after the pandemic, once the initial dust of the kind of initial layoffs and all of that kind of happened, said, hey, April 1st is coming up, mortgage is going to be due. How are you doing? How can we help you? One of the things that I think is really special about Habitat is that if you miss your mortgage for a month, we check in with you. We don't immediately go, oh no, you're being kicked out. We work with you to say, well, why are you missing your mortgage? Did
Mm-hmm.
you lose your job? Do you need help budgeting? Can we put you in a class to kind of help you with your budget better? So we work with our homeowners long after they've been moved in and closed. I mean, we have homeowners that have been around for 20 years now that are still, I haven't been around for too many years, but come around and I think, oh, you must live in like Tinnon Woods, the neighborhood we built in like 3 years ago. I'm like, no, I live in this neighborhood over here. It's like, I would never know because you're so engaged and involved still. So many of our homeowners like to be connected, but we also like to make sure we're connected with them.
No, awesome. Thank you for that. And I think that's again speaks to you all's model and how important it is to really build and maintain community. Another question we received from Leslie, she asked, until you can have full volunteer force at building sites post COVID, what are other ways that folks can be involved?
That's a great question too. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot, only because some of the other stuff we have going on would typically be in-person events, either fundraisers or just kind of community gatherings. So of course, that's also incredibly limited. Obviously, monetary donations help keep our organization going, but just being involved with our email list, we often share different opportunities, again, kind of speaking to the advocacy level, but even kind of as you teased before with like shopping at the restore, like you may not think that that's helping because you're getting a cool rug or couch out of the deal, but you're helping build homes by raising money for us that way. So just kind of being connected with our organization, and there's so many little ways that add up.
Absolutely. And I think those are great examples, right? Remaining connected through you all's external communications via your newsletter, as well as supporting your restore, right? There's little ways that we can continue to support your work, and be involved and, be able to connect to your community. Another question we received kind of goes back to volunteer experience, and they asked, is there a need to have relevant experience to volunteer? Any minimum hours commitment needed?
Absolutely not. Anyone can come to our site. So, like I said, now is a little bit different, but in pre COVID times, we would have groups come from their businesses, we'd have groups come from faith groups, we have obviously UNC Chapel Hill, so we have a lot of student groups out quite often, and also just regular community build shifts on the weekend. So all you need to do to come to our site is be 18 years or older. You have to be 18 to operate power tools, so we sometimes have youth a little bit younger than that come out. But just come and have an open mind, honestly, is what we tell people. Be ready to kind of learn from whatever our site supervisors are there to show you. But we never have more people than our staff can handle and check in on and make sure that if you do have a question that you ask, we rarely have injuries on our site. So people are good about asking and kind of being around and being attentive to their surroundings, and we help out in the end.
No, and from the questions that are rolling in, it sounds like our audience is really wanting to be involved, and that is so encouraging. We just received another question. What type of application or background check do volunteers go through, if any at all?
Yeah, so when our homeowners apply, they do go through a criminal background check, and then we do run their credit history as well. And so there are some different qualifiers on that level that we go through to make sure before we even have a home visit or anything with them to see if they meet the requirements of our program.
And do you have those same sort of requirements for volunteers? Is there a background check at all?
We do not. No, we do not do because some affiliates around here might for court ordered service, so we don't do any of that kind of stuff. But you just have to fill out a safety waiver and be 18 years old.
And that sort of follows up and answers our next question. So you have to fill out a volunteer application, a safety waiver, as well as be 18 years old. One of our folks joining us on the call wanted to know if kids were allowed on site, but I'm sure there's other ways that our youth can be involved and support Habitat as well, but we don't want to put a power tool in their hands.
No, it's kind of funny with youth because people ask us that all of the time. Like, I want my kids to be involved.
Yeah.
The youngest age youth are involved are at 14, and that's mostly just painting because it's the lowest risk. One of our programs for Women Build actually was a big, partly childcare because the moms wanted to come out and build, but they're like, we really want to show our kids like what we're doing. So last year we had bench building for kids between 8 and 16, I believe, and to kind of come out, be on site with their moms, but also still build something that ended up being a gift for our homeowners. So there are always different opportunities, but on site in specific, and particularly, they're a little more limited, like you said, because of the liability and the power tools.
Absolutely. But I think that's such a great way to be creative and pivot, right? To meet that need and create an opportunity for children and youth to still be involved and to be empowered by watching their parents participate, but not have that liability. Um,
And this
look
weekend,
at,
actually, we're having our high school groups are doing rake-a-thon. So they're raising funds by socially distant raking lawns within Chapel Hill and Hillsborough. So there are always different ways, at least from a funding standpoint, too, that we have youth involved.
Awesome. We have a question from Brianna Simpson. Do you have to volunteer? Do we have to do, oh, does the volunteer work strictly only happen in Orange County?
No, that is for our affiliate. We obviously only service Orange County, um, but you can also check out the other local affiliates around here. You also don't have to have ties to Orange County. I personally live in Wake County and have gotten my friends and roommates to come out to come build with me. And so you just, if you want to come build in Hillsborough, where we're currently building, you can just go to our site and sign up.
Awesome. So hear that, guys. There's no ties to county lines. You can cross those county lines and volunteer in Orange, in Wake, in Durham, or wherever your local Habitat for Humanity affiliate is located. And well, I'm looking to see if we have any last questions coming through. I don't see any, but this has been such an awesome conversation, Kaitlyn. We know that the work that you all do in Orange County, as well as Habitat for Humanity International, is so important to increasing the access to home ownership for many in our nation and in our backyards. And so I just thank you for your time and everyone for joining us today. Any last words on how people can continue to be involved in the work that you all do?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the points I was looking over that I forgot to mention earlier is that one thing that's really unique and special about Habitat, I think, is we really are community minded. We, like I said about our senior housing community, we partnered with the Department on Aging to kind of make sure that that was up to the standards that they would want to see seniors in. Oftentimes in our home preservation program, we have a certain threshold that we spend typically on a project, but if there's more work to be done, we say, hey, we're really good at building ramps. Hey, this other community partner is really good at has an HVAC replaceable program. We kind of connect the dots there and really work within our community to service those within our organization as best as we can. And I think those who are involved with United Way are very excited about that too, being very community minded, and we try and kind of tie all the pieces together. So we appreciate your support in any way that you give it. Like I said, something as simple as going to our restore or sending an email to an elected official, if that's ever an ask through our email list, is very helpful and kind of works towards our mission, even if you aren't on our site swinging a hammer.
Absolutely. And we've actually had some more questions to come through. These folks are excited, Kaitlin, and I'm loving it. How how many hours do you have to, is there a minimum number of hours that you have to volunteer in order to volunteer again?
No, not at all. We have people who come out once. We have people who come out specifically with a certain program. Like I mentioned before, Women Build has a couple weekends a year, so they might only come out twice a year for Women Build. Um, we have a regular crew who's out there every Wednesday, so you can come as often as you want. We definitely see spikes in the spring and fall because of the North Carolina winters and summers, but you can
Absolutely.
come any time of year that you're with a group or there's individual opportunities.
Awesome. And another question we received from Emma: how has shopping at the restores changed with COVID? Reduced open hours, limit on the people in the buildings?
Yeah, so for now we're kind of back up. I don't even necessarily want to say full operations. The highest level of operations since COVID. Our stores did close down for a little bit around here, but when they reopened, they had times where they were spraying. Even before COVID, we would be cleaning and wiping down anything that would come in because obviously it is a thrift store and you're never necessarily sure what situation items are coming from. So that process hasn't necessarily changed. Wearing masks is obviously required. Our local stores didn't do it, but one in Morrisville was offering a discount if you like wore fun mask or something like that. So
Nice.
we're really trying to encourage that, and obviously social distancing. But our capacity, I don't know the number off the top of my head. It's never been full, but I know the capacity has also been. If you've been to any, at least in Orange County, they're pretty large buildings. So
Yes.
even at 50%, we can still get a good amount of people in there and be distanced.
Absolutely. And that is the store, the restore that I frequent, the one that is located between Durham and Orange County. And I did notice the slight changes with sort of spacing out, making sure people wear masks. So I just encourage people to still, shop there. Again, it's another way to be involved in community and support the restore, or at least my favorite way, because who doesn't like retail shopping for a good
Well,
cause?
one thing a lot of people don't know around here actually is that Wake County is the largest operator of restores in the nation. So
Wow.
we partner with Wake County. There's 11 restores between Wake, Durham, and Orange counties. And so that one kind of conglomerate is the most across the nation. So we love our restores around here.
Yes, exciting, exciting. Well, this has been such a fabulous conversation, really just talking about the awesome work that Habitat for Humanity in Orange County and our other affiliates nationally are doing to really to bring home ownership to those who may not have access normally. Kaitlyn, I just want to thank you for your time, lending your expertise and your voice to the work that you all are doing. I know that your executive director, Jennifer, is doing an awesome job. You all are passionate about your work, and it really, truly shows. We are so fortunate here at the United Way of the Greater Triangle to have you all as partners in this mission to eradicate poverty and increase social mobility, specifically through affordable housing. So thank you to you, and thank you to everyone in our audience who has joined us today. Continue to check out all of our websites for upcoming Unwrapped episodes. Our next episode, we will be featuring Interact. And so we're excited to lead them in a conversation as well. But thank you again to all of those who have joined us today, and continue to have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.